Well, good evening once again on Sunday evening when we try to catch up from the week before and move ahead into the week to come. And this week it's going to move into an interesting area for a lot of us, and maybe contrary to some of my exhortations throughout the course that we not act like fans. A little bit of our fan bias is going to come in here a little bit this week, and so with that being said, let me back up and look at what we did, where you went last week, and comment a little bit about the midterm essay that you put together, and let you know where things are going to go, and the fact that I'm once again doing a little bit of changing on the fly because things are changing in the world of sports, and they do so frequently that I think almost we could develop a new course every time we run sport economics here. So we are going to be doing a little bit of changing on the fly this week, and I'll tell you what that's all about. Let's first back up to last week. First, let's talk about the material in the course itself. Last week we wanted to talk about the whole idea of what is the value of a franchise to a city, to a municipality, to an area. How is that measured, and is it real? You hear this all the time. A team wants a new stadium. A team wants a new facility. What frequently happens? Well, as you saw in some of the readings, they threaten to move. They try to move to a different area. They get concessions from states and municipalities. People want that franchise there. So why is that? Well, there's a perception that a sports franchise generates a lot of ancillary business for the area. And sure, it does. Go to any area near a major stadium and look at what's around. In fact, if any of you have ever been to an NFL game, I'm going to choose the New England Patriots for instance, because I'm familiar with the physical surroundings there. But there's a stretch of Route 1 in Foxborough where I would venture to say that there are some businesses that make more out of selling their parking space on a home game day than they do in the run of their normal business for a couple of weeks. Okay? That's the value to those businesses of having a franchise in the city, in the town. All right? But how about someplace like New York? Well, we hear about New York, but New York is one of the few cities that's big enough and economically powerful enough to house more than one franchise. But is the economy of New York going to suffer if, say, the Mets moved away? Just like what happened back when the Dodgers and the Giants moved to the West Coast about 55 years ago now. New York didn't wither up and die, did it? Just because two of its then three major league teams went away. Yet, also, jumping back to the Patriots, living here in the Hartford area, about 10 years ago, we had a big, excitement that the Patriots were threatening to pick up camp and move to Hartford. And we heard what a great boon this was going to be to the local economy. But the Patriots were able to use that leverage and get a whole bunch of concessions out of Massachusetts and Foxborough and be able to stay. So I hope that looking at some of the material made you think about that and answer some questions for yourself. The idea is, when teams do this, as the value they quote, is it inflated a bit? What is the real value? And I think some of the readings and the comments from the economists were probably pretty valuable. Okay, this week we're going to move into something that's about to change, maybe. And I'm going to start introducing it. I was going to wait a week or two, but let's start introducing it this week. This week's material is about the labor market in sports. Sports labor market is really interesting because at the highest levels, and this is what we see all the time in the news, right? We only read about the major leagues, it seems, but let's look at them this way. Boy, I kind of wish I had a major league player's salary. I can recall a story that when I was about a very young man, very new in the business world, back in the late 70s, there was an article in the New York Times magazine that profiled the last man on a major league roster. baseball. And they profiled the backup catcher for the Red Sox. And I don't recall the gentleman's name. He made the major league minimum salary that year, $25,000. And I recall that year I had a pretty good year and I made more than $25,000. And here I was, a 25-year-old guy back then, so 25, so it's 35 years ago now, and thinking, boy, I'm doing really great. I'm making more money than the major league minimum. Well, sad to say, my income hasn't kept up with the major league minimum. So, the market has changed. The labor market has ballooned. Free agency just really in every sport has had such an impact. So, we were talking last week about how do you value a franchise. This week we want to talk about how do you value a player. What is the value of a player to a franchise, to a team? It's kind of here where you can now put in a different meaning to the ever popular phrase most valuable player. Well, is that always the most expensive player? And what goes into making a player valuable? So really, I want you to look at that in different ways and just keep an open mind on everything. Think of it that way. What makes a player valuable? Is the MVP the most expensive player? Question worth answering. Okay, another major change going on, and I'm going to put up some material about it. Maybe if I can get to it tonight, I will, but certainly in the course of the next few days. I think it's terribly fascinating what's going on in the potential changing labor market, if you will, in college sports. And this all comes from the NLRB decision that would allow the Northwestern University football team to take a vote to unionize. And unionizing college players is a really interesting concept because in order to unionize, the National Labor Relations Board, a federal agency, has to take the position that you're an employee, not a student. That's quite a change in the way we look at things, and that could really impact the college sports landscape for years to come. But it could also impact the pro sports landscape. And there are other issues in the labor market for sports that really kind of cross between the college and pro worlds. As we approach the NCAA men's national championship game tomorrow night, we're going to look at the University of Kentucky with all of their, quote, one and dones. And a lot of people get very worked up about that rule, about guys coming into college basketball, staying 1 year, and then going on to the pros. But keep in mind, that's not an NCAA rule, that's an NBA rule, okay? The NCAA doesn't say you must stay 1 year and then you can go. The NCAA has no rules on how long you can stay within the terms of your eligibility, okay? You use up your 4 years, you use up your 4 years, then you can't play anymore. But before that, they don't say you can only stay one. It's the NBA that is forcing these young guys to stay for 1 year. Huge debate whether if somebody is ready to come into the league and play right out of high school, should they be allowed to? This changes the face of things. So those are the kind of topics we're going to be talking about this week. I do hope you had some fun with the midterm essay. I will now tell you, and it's Sunday evening, and some people may still be working on this, so if I get this posted before the midnight deadline, I'm not going to give you what his comments were, but I'll tell you who the owner who looked at this assignment and said it was a pretty good question was, and that owner is Mr. Ted Leonsis. And Mr. Leonsis is the majority owner of the Washington Wizards of the NBA and the Washington Capitals of the NHL. And when he spoke to this former student who took the course about 2 semesters ago, and when he spoke to him about the assignment and said it was interesting, he gave a very interesting response. And once we're kind of past the deadline, I will share that for you. Okay, thanks again for your discussion board participation, and please keep it up because as you've come to realize that this is an important part of the grade in this course, and it's really where a lot of the learning takes place. So make sure you're following up on the discussion board, staying active, making sure that things are substantive, and keep in mind that you really need to respond to more than one individual in order to get full credit. I know that's a technical point, but really it drives the discussion and makes it good for everyone. So if there are any questions, please get to me as usual. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what your answers are about our NBO owner's dilemma case. Okay, thanks very much.